Chapter 4, Let's Show Them. How would Pro hunt dragons? Gate. Thus the Sorcerer's Kingdom fought there by Oblivion 2991. Proofread and check by Wacko12. Thank you for reading my fanfic. My mother language is not English, so please be patient about the grammatical issues. I don't own the Overlord, BRDO, novel or anime series created by Kugin Maruyama. I don't own Gate, Gyukin Kono Kanite, Kekitokari novel, an anime series, written by Tekmi Yaneti. Please review it. I know I will make mistakes that I intend to correct and will try to learn from my mistakes and improve myself. Thank you. Please enjoy the story. What do you think, Momon-san? Where is our little dragon heading? Raiden asked, as she turned her head towards her companion, while the two of them continued their fast sprint. I don't know. Maybe something drew its attention. The strangest thing is, it does not bother turn in our direction. Momon replied. Now that you mention it, you are right. It is strange to just ignore possible threats that are pursuing you. Only a fool does such thing. Commented Raiden. Maybe our ring of concealment is more effective than we thought, and the dragon does not recognize us as a threat. Answered the Black Plat warrior. Raiden sighed. Such unfortunate event. When I hoped to get a good fight, the enemy just ran away. Or maybe, the dragon picked up a scent from that direction. Dragons usually have an excellent nose. Muse Momon. Raiden nodded and continued. What do you think about those traces? Momon shrugged. Honestly, I don't know. Seeing this world's technological level, it would be impossible for them to make cars. This empire neither has the industry nor the technology to make them. Maybe it was a strange animal that left those tracks. However, I found the traces of galvanized rubber on them. Still, we met animals before that left rubber as an excrement. Explained Raiden. Momon nodded. Yes, you are right. For example, the rubber worm that we found in the forest of the elves left rubber as a dung. Raiden chuckled. Yeah, those are really weird animals. Momon nodded. Indeed, at least, Toma found some use of them. From the corner of her eyes, Raiden spotted a caravan of carts. Her eyes widened in surprise. Look there, Momon-kun. Momon looked forward. And what he saw stunned him for a moment. Stop, he said, and the two of them halted for a moment with their wild charge. Are those vehicles really what I think they are? You see them, don't you? Are my eyes deceiving me? Raiden asked. I don't sense any illusions from the direction. I see them too. Your eyes do not deceive you. Momon assured. Raiden smirked. Then let's kill some dragons, shall we? Momon nodded and lunged forward toward the caravan but was already under attack by the huge dragon. Don't forget. We're undercover. We can't raise any suspicion. Explained Momon. Okie dokie, boss. I will keep my big mouth shut. Under her hood, a closed futuristic-looking helmet slid over her face. It did not seem to have any eye holes, instead the full mask resembled made from the semi-gray material of the metallic exoskeleton that she wore. Lids brimating the two sides of the strange mask, and several tubes adorned the sides of it what led under the shadow of her hood. Scene change. Fortress down. The Sorcerer Kingdom paid close attention to the safety of their troops. After all, the people of the Sorcerer Kingdom were the foundation and holders of the pillars of the government structure. Of course, the Sorcerer King and his vassals could easily rule over their lands without people. Still, without them, the kingdom would be utterly deserted. Without them, there would be no trades, neither any advancement. Thus, the Sorcerer King kept them as his vassals. If his vassals shone their worth, the Sorcerer King Ainzul down showered them with miracles and good life. In cases when an individual worth surpasses its price of losing, what meant death in a given situation, the Supreme Beings even blessed the person, either transforming him or her into a heteromorphic being, such as granting the individual eternal life or extended their life span and giving back their youth. Of course, the two remained Supreme Beings do not force such things. It was the individual choice if she had accepted the gift. If not, the person could ask for another miracle. For example, resurrecting a deceased person or wealth beyond belief in some cases. In another word, the kingdom's policy was, work hard for the kingdom, respect others, and you will be rewarded with miracles beyond your imagination. But, slack off, act disrespectful towards others, and betray the trust the Supreme Beings, and thousands of deaths will not save you from their wrath. This was a simple yet working policy in the kingdom. The Sorcerer Kingdom and the two Supreme Beings cared about their citizens. Thus, when they were deployed to foreign lands, a strong magically enchanted defensive base camp would first be built. Without base as their stronghold, they would have a refuge during an emergency, and they could withhold against superior forces easily while either one of the high-level vassals of Nezarec or even one of the supreme beings came to take care of the attacking force. Contrary to the old military view which thought little of an individual life, they were now used to carrying out disaster relief missions to save people. Moreover, the Sorcerer Kingdom paid more attention to defending the kingdom's citizens than its predecessors. They rather used summon monsters, such as, for example, Death Knights or Nephilim guards to go into the meat grinder than sending individuals towards their death. The summons was easily replaceable. However, replacing an individual was not that easy. Of course, there were many cases when one asked to participate such dangerous missions. Most of the time the superiors granted their wish respecting the desire of theirs following the kingdom's policy. Furthermore, on the other side of the gate was their homeland in the realm that the two remaining supreme beings inhabited and ruled over. In other words, defending the gate was the main reason why the Sorcerer Kingdom Expedition Army was here, and the other was punish the invaders for their sacrilegious act. In another name, Sketch was the nickname as many soldiers called the expedition force. By using both political and military methods, they were to conquer, secure the land surrounding the gate and show the invading empire to not mess with the Sorcerer Kingdom. This was the mission of the Sketh. Mapping the land surrounding the gate by taking aerial pictures and deploying scouts was also part of their plan. If the empire will not bow before the kingdom and compensate it for the act of treachery towards the Sorcerer King, then Sorcerer Kingdom will either conquer it using either force or political methods, or completely burn down the empire to the ground leaving nothing but ashes, then salting the capital city ground with salt. Like the Romans did after they destroyed Carthage in BC 149. Of course, the Sorcerer King rather used the resources than dispose of them this way. His vassals known him as a wise king whose plans was uncomprehendingly complicated what simple mortal being's mind could not comprehend. After all, he was respected and mentioned in the books like the god of foresight, wisdom, and death and the patron of the magic casters in the New World. His companion, the other remained supreme being, was called the goddess of the balance and war. Seen as its nature, it was not surprising. After all, she was half demon and angel, equally dark and light. The fort was not a hastily constructed field fortification of dirt or sandbags, but rather, it was built with reinforced enchanted stone blocks, with the intention of making it a permanent defensive structure. It had been 2 weeks since the Sketh took over the land around the gate. After working tirelessly for several days and nights, Deln's Hill had become an impregnable fortress. The uniformly built hexagram-shaped fortress displayed the character of the aide that thought up this design. Most of the people who viewed the fort with a bird's-eye view said that it looked like the six-sided fortification at Hackadate. Some deviants would giggle and say this was a magic formation. In fact, it was. The fortress was built this way and had reinforcing wards placed in the key points of the structure to enhance the defender's stats and abilities in the area. The Chapel of the Supreme Beings, already built, and numerous soldiers made their plea to their patron gods. Each of them, of course, respected and worshipped all of them evenly. But they asked the blessing for their patron gods to protect them from harm or bring them good fortune. Each supreme beings had its day in the calendar where the practice of the religion of Supremus celebrated the given supreme being. Of course, the two remaining deities were worshipped by most of the people of the Sorcerer Kingdom. Due to the two of them appearing and granted miracles to the people personally. The two of them promises were not empty ones that many religions offered to the people. The two of them appeared and fulfilled the people's wish if they earned it. In the kingdom, one was free to practice the religion of their choice. Everyone worshipped whoever they wanted, so long as it does not cause harm or forces other denizens of the kingdom to change their life. Every religion that was said to have hurt or repress others were banned with an excellent efficiency, destroying it by its roots, preventing it from blooming and corrupting others with its harmful effects. Strangely, Ains and Esth always refused that their gods. And for this, the people worshipped them even more. Saying, such a humble approach from the supreme beings. After a while, it became quite an annoyance and the two of them simply let the people think what they want. Shutting their ears and saying, "La la la. I can't hear anything." Emerg walked through the compound, inspecting the construction work that was still underway in some areas of the fortress. The Undead and the Gelms worked without stop, only slowing or pausing their job when either they waited for new command or for the mages and the elder Lycus to finish their other duties. The working creatures did not have to stop because they were just tireless tools of the Supreme Being's will. And because the mages of the Sorcerer King placed silencing wards around the working areas that filtered the noise of the moving forces. Demerg was satisfied with the results and smiled sinisterly. Everything went according to plan, and the impenetrable fortress was ready if the enemy tried to attack again. Not as if they would have a chance against the army of the Supreme Beings and their loyal vassals. His plan was to meet the Crown Prince in the gates and take office from him. He headed towards the newly constructed chapel to make his daily pleas towards the Supreme Beings, then start his work. As he inspected the construction from the corner of his perfectly cut diamond eyes, he spotted the approaching Beelzebub. He turned towards him and bowed deeply. "Beelzebub Selma." Demiurge bowed. Beelzebub smiled and nodded while unmounted his mount. "Demiurge. It is good to see you. How do you like our fortress?" Demiurge looked around. "It is magnificent. Worthy of the Supreme Beings. It seems the Supreme Beings smiled us this day. Seemingly, the constructions are going according to the plans," he said in a happy tone. "How is my mother, father, and my sisters doing? The kingdom managing right in the other side of the structure?" inquired the young heir. "Last time when I saw Insama and Elda, they were fine. Your older sister is doing her usual political scheme to move you from the first place of inheritance as usual. It seems she out what your mother and I taught her." Demiurge explained. Beelzebub sighed. "I don't understand women," mumbled the young heir. Demiurge continued. "Furthermore, we are in the process of dealing with that nasty terrorist organization back in the kingdom. According to the message what the fleet admiral sent, our forces almost conquered the other continent." Beelzebub nodded in satisfaction. "It is good to hear such good news. Did Father know Ange went missing again?" Demiurge panicked for a moment, but he showed no sign of it to the outside world. Then, he calmed down, remembering his master would surely have warned him if the other Supreme Being would be in danger. He nodded with his usual calm, smiling expression. "Is that so? I'm sure Aunt Sama is as well aware of the situation and will make the necessary steps if he feels like it." Beelzebub lowered his head. "Right, Father has always seen everything before it's happened in the past. And Aunt always wandered off in the worst of the moments. What do you think she does such things? The ways of the Supreme Beings are inscrutable. Only Aunt Sama could say surely know why. Or maybe her creations. If you ask me, I advise you seek their wisdom in the theme," said Demiurge. Beelzebub smiled. "I will. By the way, as you already know, I am officially tasked to hand the administration duties to you while I will be away to negotiate in the first city." Beelzebub gave a scroll to Demiurge. Demiurge nodded and accepted it. "Please take care of the fortress and our forces until we return," ordered Beelzebub. He then mounted his mount before looking back at Kren, who just listened to the conversation all along while sat on his mount saddle. "Come, Kren. We have a long journey ahead of us." Kren, the captain of his honor guard, bowed his head. "As you wish, my prince." With a simple sign from Kren, the honor guard started their march. The massive metal double gates of the fortress opened. The walls were triple layered, so the enemy had to penetrate all 3 layers even to reach the courtyard where the forces of the kingdom awaited them. Between the layers of the walls were littered with magical and standard traps that automatically activated when the triggering event happened, releasing various strong creatures from the walls or showering the enemy with various magic. Beelzebub, Kren, and the massive honor guard moved past the 3 gates. Some of them had mounts under them, but most of them not. The honor guard consisted of various summoned creatures and the golden armored veteran guards of the Sorcerer King that he personally chose, then sent for the service training the Sorcerer King Private Academy. There only the most talented allowed were to enter. As the 3 massive metallic gates closed behind them, Demiurge turned around and headed towards the chapel. Later that day, inside Demiurge's office an 8-edged assassin appeared. It knocked the double door gently what slowly opened before it. Demiurge looked up from the papers before him. "Do you have something to report?" The creature kneeled. "Yes, Demiurge Selma. We have discovered another similar structure like ours. Approximately 10 miles away from our location. Here's the report." Demiurge thought for a moment, then read the report. "Interesting. Anything else to report?" "Yes. We found no trace of magic except their gate, what was covered with a strange dome. Seemingly there were only a few individuals who were capable of magic, and they were weak and seemingly were not aware of their abilities. The strongest amongst them was no stronger than a tier 3 mage. The people were not even capable of sensing us. We just walked in the middle of their base without anyone even noticing us," reported Assassin. "I see. What else?" Demiurge nodded. The assassin continued. "Seemingly they use technology to balance out this disadvantage. Cautious actions advised if we attack them with brute force." Demiurge nodded. "Zero-sama awaiting your orders. How do we proceed? Do we annihilate them from inside? Or we simply keep them under surveillance?" asked the assassin. For the time being, just keep them under strict observation, gather as much information as you can from them, place hidden remote traps in the key point of the base and on their devices. Occasionally try collect samples from this technology and bring it back for further investigation. But do not raise any suspicion in the process. Order Demerg the assassin bout. I understand Demerg Salma. We'll do as you ordered. I will relay the message to Zero Salma. You can go now. I will call you if I need anything else," said Demerg. The eight-edged assassin bowed deeply then disappeared. The double door closed after it's left the chamber. The archdevil started to inspect the magical photos what was taken in the scene. Interesting architecture. I wonder who they are. Scene change. Battle with the dragon. For now, let's change the scene. The roaring sounds of the engines of an HMV, a Type 73 truck and a light armored vehicle, LAV, made a cloud of dust on their trail. The Komatsu light armored vehicle, Japanese. Kariusuke Kidsha, is a Japanese military vehicle first produced in 2002. Currently used exclusively by the Japan Self-Defense Force, JSDF. It has seen use in the Iraq War. Komatsu Ltd. builds it. Defense Systems Division in Komatsu, Ishikawa, Japan. Komatsu's factory designator for the vehicle is KU-50W. The exterior resembles the Panhard VBL, used by the French Army, but the LAV has 4 doors and a large cabin for carrying soldiers. The LAV can also be transported by air in vehicles like the CH-47J and the C-130H. The elderly, women, and children in the vehicles had to endure the rocking of the car from sharp turns and changes in speed, causing their heads and bodies to collide with each other. Gritting their teeth, they endured the pain. Looking out the window of the vehicle, the view was blocked by the escaping Kota villagers, and the black shadow falling on them from the sky. The flame dragon had come. Thanks to the prior knowledge of the flame dragon's appearance courtesy of the JSDF, Kota village, and a few other nearby villages had all simultaneously fled from the beast. After the flame dragon couldn't find any humans or elves to prey on, it followed its nose to a place filled with people. Since the preparation for escaping had taken some time, and they were weighed down by their luggage, the slow speed of the Kota villagers had allowed the flame dragon to catch them. It was the 3rd day of the exodus from Kota village, and the refugees thought they were out of the flame dragon's hunting grounds. However, the beast suddenly appeared and immediately began attacking its prey. Fighting with monsters is the JSDF's tradition. Who'd have thought that we would be doing it here? An elderly soldier yelled. They circled the dragon repeatedly and kept attacking to buy time for the villagers to escape. Thanks to them, many of the villagers survived. The flame dragon turned around to attack the men in green. But, the beast could not catch up with their frightening speed. By moving around, they kept themselves safe from the scorching flames of the dragon. But soon, the dragon got used to their tactics. The people in green who could only cast magic from afar were at a disadvantage. Sergeant Major Kudabara shouted furiously out, "Krata, run! Run!" Maybe it was due to the over-secretion of adrenaline by the brain, but a hint of joy could be heard in his voice. The flame dragon swooped down at the villagers who had stood frozen in place. Seeing this, Utami shouted in the direction of the speeding LAV. "Suppressing fire. LAV. Shoot him with the machine gun," he ordered. Private Sasagawa mustered all the strength in his body to hold onto the handle of the 50 caliber machine gun while it made sounds like a jackhammer in a construction site. The thick cartridges fell soundly to the ground amid scouts of black smoke as 12.7 mm bullets created sparks on the flame dragon's back. However, the tough dragon scales deflected the bullets. "It's useless." He grit his teeth as he continued firing with 50 caliber machine gun what was mounted on the top of the LAV. Hearing Sasagawa's words, Utami shouted in reply, "Don't worry about that. Just keep firing. Fire. Fire. Fire." Although airsoft gun shooting BBS could not kill people, being hit by them was annoying. As such, even though the dragon's body was covered in tough scales which could not be penetrated by bullets, it was still a living thing and possessed the sense of touch. Utami ordered his subordinates to keep firing. Blossoms of fire erupted from the flash suppressors of the Type 64 Hauer rifles. The flame dragon could not bear the rain of bullets. Its attack slowed down, which allowed the farmer who was already in its mouth to escape. The horrifying dragon turned his head towards the men. An arrow protruded from its blind eye, but nobody could look directly at its terrifying visage. It was like a scar on a yakuza's face. The flame dragon breathed fire at them like a flamethrower but was unable to reach the wildly evasive JSDF vehicles. "Oh no. Unary. Oh no." A female teenage voice came from behind them. As he turned around, golden hair entered Tommy's line of sight. The pale elf pointed her slender fingers at her eyes while shouting "Oh no!" revealingly. At that moment, although there was a language barrier between them, Tommy somehow understood what she meant. Go for the eyes. The JSDF troopers trained their sights on the face of the dragon and opened fire. The flame dragon looked visibly annoyed as it turned its face away and stopped its movements. Katsumoto. Use the Panzerfaust. From the LAV, he hauled out a 100mm man-portable anti-tank rocket launcher that had an RHC, rolled homogeneous armor, penetration factor of 700 mm. It was an infantry weapon that possessed tremendous power. Exchanging places with Sasagawa, who was operating the 50 caliber machine gun, Sergeant Katsumoto clambered up with the Panzerfaust. However, this weapon was front-heavy and hard to turn. In addition, the safety-conscious JSDF did not have the habit of shooting from an unbraced position. Back blouse clear. He shouted. Idiot. Just shoots already, someone scolded under their breath. But after remembering about their training, all they could think was hey. It's the JSDF after all. While he was aiming, the flame dragon attempted to escape into the sky. The LAV sped up suddenly, causing Katsumoto's body to thrash around and the dragon to shift out of the rocket launcher's sight picture. Damn it. Keep it steady, Asma. Don't ask the impossible. Because of that, the rocket launcher did not have a computer guidance system. Thus, shooting while moving was impossible. With that in mind, Katsumoto aimed the rocket launcher at the dragon again. Due to the LAV suddenly breaking in the recoil from firing the rocket, as the trigger was pulled, the Panzerfaust seemed like it would miss. The rocket accelerated towards the dragon with flames sprouting from its tail. The dragon, which had lost its balance, spread its wings to regain its balance while stepping back to evade the warhead. However, its footing suddenly slipped. Looking closely, there was a halberd stuck straight into the ground. On the HMV, the goth-low-leaded girl had cut a hole in the canvas covering the luggage and thrown the halberd from there. Its handle hit the leg of the animal. The flame dragon fell in the direction of the rocket, which should have missed. Due to the Newman effect, even the tough dragon scales were unable to resist the blast. It exceeded the Hugoneotic elasticity limit of its armor and broke through, blasting a hole clean through it. If one compared the anatomy of the flame dragon to that of a human, the whole left arm was blown off. The air vibrated with the wail of the dragon. Its roar was like its eyes, which could shake the spirit and shatter a warrior's courage. All the people present had their souls frozen. The dragon started to fall towards the ground for a moment because its unbearable pain what it felt after its loose one of its arm. The flame dragon's piercing roar caused a brief lapse in the JSDF's fire. The animal seized this opportunity and flew into the sky. However, suddenly several blue spectral blades flew towards the dragon, penetrating its skin in the process. The JSDF and the refugees watched with a stunned expression what just happened. The seemingly impenetrable armor was penetrated by some kind of strange energy blades. Everyone looked in the direction where it came from. From the direction where the blades came from, they saw two figures charging towards the dragon. One of them looked like a knight who wore fully jet black body armor with purple and golden markings on it. He wore a red cape and along with two giant swords on his back while carrying it behind him. He dwarfed the other figure besides him who wore a strange red leather long coat with a hood. With a metallic-looking exoskeleton and a futuristic closed helmet underneath it. On the figure side, seemingly a katana sheath hung loosely while she held her katana unchecked in her left hand. The small figure exoskeleton looked like Raiden's cybernetic armor from the Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance game. The two characters' speed reached 55 km/h easily. The two of them looked like they are high-level characters who just stepped out from some kind of light novel or RPG. Tommy and Krata, the two Edokas, eyes glittered despite the danger seeing the two magnificently armored figures. As said before, it was like they stepped out from the light novels or some kind of RPG. The two of them reached the dragon with a high speed. The dragon turned in their direction and took a deep breath to release its flames. The two figures started to evade the flames with their fast movement. Tommy was realizing this as their chance gave the command. Herd the refugees to a safe area. His subordinates, being a professional, immediately took action. Katsumoto. Use another Panzerfaust. Katsumoto immediately took out another of his armor-piercing weapon and started to aim. The JSDF continued to shoot the flame dragon. Tuka and Lil just watched in awe as the two figures used the incredibly fast movements to outmaneuver the dragon. Rory was biting her lower lip in excitement, charged into the battle after she recovered her huge halberd. The dragon, despite its injuries, became faster. It lunged towards the long-coated futuristic armor-wearing figure, but before the massive tail could squeeze her into a paste, she disappeared. Of course, seemingly she has been killed by the tail. Rory joined the black-clad warrior against the dragon. "Who are you, stranger?" she asked in an excited tone as the Dark Knight blocked the dragon's strike with the two of his massive two-handed swords. The Dark Knight repelled the attack by using his brute strength only, and the dragon stepped back. "We'll introduce each other after the battle is over," he replied simply with his deep voice. Rory smiled, as she felt a dark presence from him that reminded Rory of her master. "Quasimodo. What are you doing? Shoot down that damn thing." Quasimodo just wanted to pull the trigger of his weapon when suddenly that great armored figure appeared above the dragon. Around her left arm seemingly dancing electrons played the lightning dance of death. She pulled back her fist, and with a sharp motion, she hit the dragon's head with a massive strike. Everything happened in mere moments. Crash! Tommy, hearing the tremendous noise, turned back to the battlefield. The field covered by dust, but he could clearly see a 160 centimeters tall figure who stood on the top of the dragon's head that had crashed to the ground. The dragon was blacked out. The figure with female proportions turned her head towards the arriving black-clad warrior in the Lolita engulfed clothing. "I see you survived," Momon sang. "And you gained a new friend." "Kukuka," she chuckled. It sounded like her voice went through some kind of voice filter what was built in her mask. Momon only nodded. "What do you say? Do we kill it?" the female asked with a metallic voice. Everyone looked stunned at the two figures' conversation. The members of the JSDF were even more confused hearing the strange warriors speaking the Japanese language. They never meet anyone in the special region who spoke the language of the country of the rising sun. Momon inspected a dragon for a moment. "Kill it. It is too dangerous to live." "Okie dokie. Do you want the honor?" offered the woman who wore Gray's exoskeleton. Momon nodded. Equipping his two huge swords and slowly started to stroll towards the dragon. The creature suddenly regained its consciousness and shook the figure from its head. The female jumped up with a fast motion and stopped the dragon who wanted to swallow her whole. She grabbed its upper and lower jaws. "Now, Momon," she shouted, but the flame dragon lunged its head backward and showered the figure in its mouth with its hot flames. Sergeant First Class Mariko Urokawa placed her hands before her mouth in horror. Knowing the one who saved them will surely not survive this. Katsumoto aimed and released the rocket. When it collided with the dragon's tail, it completely blew it off. But the dragon just continued to vomit its fire to the stranger. He hastily started to recharge his weapon with another rocket. Momon, knowing his partner endurance, lunged forward. Rory Mercury, the apostle of Enroy, followed him close behind. He jumped high in the air and with a pirouette that empowered his momentum he sliced through that dragon's sturdy scales. As if sword collided with the scales, they held back Momon's weapon for a moment. His weapons were created by the create item spell as well as his armors. Arrgh. The warrior increased the pressure under the edge of his blades. In the end, the scales of the fire dragon were not sturdy enough to withstand the power of the adamantine-ranked adventurer who was in reality a mage. Ains used his perfect warrior transformation to gain temporarily the stats and abilities of an equal-level warrior. In exchange, he was unable to use his spells. He could only use items Ingles race skills. Everyone looked stunned as they saw the black-clad warrior slice through seemingly without resistance first the sturdy scales, then the flesh, and in the end, the strong bones of the dragon. After he completely sliced through of its neck, the body stood up due to the muscles still following the last command that they got from the brain. Then it collapsed to the ground lifelessly. Only the nerve movement remained. The fire from the dragon's mouth stopped vomiting liquid death, and everyone gasped as they saw the steaming long-coated figure who withheld the dragon only with her hands. She dismissed the head with a lazy move and the carcass landed on the ground. Thud, huh? This was spicy. What are you eating, girl? Momon walked beside her. He was followed by Rory's smiling form. Are you alright? Yeah. I'm fine. I just nodded off for a moment. Back in the JSDF convoy. Yeah. That was so cool. What do you think, First Lieutenant? Who are these guys? Said Crowd as he pointed to the two warriors. Tommy collected his thoughts. I don't know. But the two of them just saved the villagers and us. They look like they stepped out some kind of RPG. Don't you think it, Tommy? Crowda exclaimed. The Tommy nodded while smiled. Yeah, it seems they are in high level. Seen their armor and skills. The two otaku started to laugh. Shino mumbled from the side of the LAV hearing the Tommy and Crowda conversation. After seeing all of this they are still able to speak such thing. Idiot nerds. She scoffed. Shino was a cute petite girl with a small frame and chestnut brown hair, with her left side made into a ponytail jutting out from the side. She also had huge breasts with a slim waist. Sergeant Major Katsumoto. Keep your guns to the dragon. Maybe it will stand up. Itami ordered his subordinate. Katsumoto was thinking it will stand up again after it had been decapitated, gulped nervously. Then saluted. Yes, sir. Itami looked to Mari and Shino. Sergeant First Class Mari. Sergeant First Class Shino. Come, let's introduce us. The two of them nodded and headed towards the newly appeared strangers. Lily, the petite blue-haired mage, followed them, wanting to investigate the case. Humph. Youth, mumbled her master. People who could slay dragons single-handed would only appear in myths and legends. Triumphing over bears and buffaloes barehand was still possible if one trained hard enough. But to fight an ancient dragon was suicidal. Even if an entire order of knights, equipped with magic armor and weapons, magicians, priests, and elven archers and spirit users were sent against an ancient dragon, it would still be futile. This was common sense in this world. As such, ancient dragons meant disaster. However, the news of the flame dragon defeat did not come from a single source, but from many people. Thus, many people believed it. On the other hand, some people said, it may be the truth, but are you sure it was a flame dragon? The flame dragons actively occurred every 50 years, as mentioned earlier. Also, it was hard to imagine that anything could defeat an ancient dragon. With that in mind, it would be more convincing to say that the ancient flame dragon was actually a large dragonoid or slitherworm. That said, a very old dragonoid could grow to the size of an ancient dragon. Slitherworms were also more dangerous than weavens. With that, even killing one of those lesser dragons could qualify a person as a dragon slayer. With more than half of the villagers still alive, they had more of a reason to believe that it's only at that level. As the two strangers and the JSDF actually killed a flame dragon, Rory just spoke with the black-clad warrior near the dragon's corpse. So, who are you, mighty warrior? I'm Momon, adamantine class adventurer. He introduced himself. And she is raiding my partner, also an adamantine class adventurer. The strange armored female stepped beside Momon. Her armor still steamed and glowed because of the heat of the flames. Yo. She welcomed Rory with a strange motion. I'm raiding. Nice to meet you. Momon shook his head. What? Asked raiding. The black-clad warrior sighed. We're the adamantine ranked adventurer team called Darkness. Rory inspected the two warriors thoroughly. I feel endless darkness emitting from the two of you. You bathed in the blood of thousands. That's true. Nodded Momon. We're experienced adventurers after all. I feel Amroy himself blesses the two of you. I feel insanity emitting from you. She pointed to raiding. Thanks, I guess, replied the female with a nervous tone. You know you need a little bit of insanity if you stood in the mouth of a dragon. She chuckled. Rory laughed wholeheartedly. I'm Rory Mercury. The apostle of Emroy. She bowed elegantly. Excuses. But who is Emroy? How do you get this conclusion about us? Inquired Momon. You don't know. But you two are blessed by Emroy himself, are you not? Rory asked, surprised. Still no clue. Sorry. Replied raiding. It is the god of darkness, war, death, violence, and insanity. And I am his apostate. Rory Mercury at your service. She bowed elegantly. Answering your other question. I can see the soul of the people. And yours is bathed in the blood of your foes. So magnificent. So huge. She bit her lower lip in excitement. Message. Shit. Are the rings working properly? Did you set the rings, right? Message. Last time I checked they worked properly. I don't think she realized who we are real. She just feels the stats what I said in the rings. Message. That's a relief. Still, be cautious. I feel she is not an average girl. Message. Don't worry. Said raiding in the message. And what is the task on a post-date? Sorry, we're new in this area. Asked Momon. Rory smiled, but before she could answer, Tommy interrupted her. Yo. He raised his hand. He was accompanied by a tall black-haired beauty in JSDF uniform. A short woman in military uniform and a petite girl with blue hair who wore green dress, with a blue top barred on top. And blue boots. She seemingly carried a staff with a blue wing on it. Thank you for your help. Said Itami in broken special region language. No problem. We just did our duty. Replied Momon. Everyone gasped. Did you speak Japanese? He asked hesitantly. You heard him right. Itami pointed to Momon. The two women, Mari and Shino, nodded uneasily. When I first heard you speak our language I thought I imagined things. But damn. Where are you from, guys? How can you speak Japanese? Inquired. Momon and Raiden looked at each other. Then Momon nodded to his masked companion. The woman turned back to Tommy. We actually do not speak your language. We just wear items enchanted by translator enchantments. So, we understand every possible language. It is quite handy in our work area. What? The three JSDF officer gasped. Little eyes widened. She never heard about such magic. So, it is like in the game. You enchant items with various proportions. That's so cool. Tommy said excitedly. Shino frowned and almost hit her first lieutenant. First lieutenant. This is not the time. She warned him. Tommy calmed down. Oh, right. I'm sorry. I'm First Lieutenant Ija Tommy. She is Sergeant First Class Shino Kurebayashi. She motioned to the short woman who nodded. And she is Sergeant First Class Mari Kurokawa. Kurokawa nodded. We're from the JSDF. Continued the First Lieutenant. Message, JSDF. What the hell? They do not resemble the JSDF from our time. Their uniform and the vehicles resembling mostly what the Self-Defense Force used early in the 21st century. Raiden used her message spell to speak with Momon through a mental link. Message worked like the whisper in every MMORPGs. With it, the user could chat with the chosen individual from a great distance. Message, what? Do you mean they're from the past Earth? That can't be right. Right? Momonga's emotion suppression activated hearing his partner explanation. Message, I don't know. But if we consider the fact the gate connect two places through time and space, it is possible. At least this is the results what I got when I examined structure. Message, go say something for them. Our communication goes with light speed. But still, if we remain silent that will be strange. Said Raiden through the mental link. Message, right. Said Momon through the mental link. He stepped forward. I'm Momon, and she is Raiden. We are the Adamant-ranked adventurer team Artness. It is nice to meet you all. Tommy and Rataku screamed in joy. So, cool armors and a cool team name. It is like I'm in an RPG. Gothic lolitas, dragons, elves and now adventurers. This world is the dream of every Hitaku. What does entail being an adventurer? Tommy asked innocently. Of course, as every gamer and otaku, he knew what it roughly entails. Well, we explore unknown regions and ruins. Occasionally slaying dangerous monsters. Explained Raiden. It is true. The job adventurer actually exists. Yes. Screamed inside Tommy. You guys are adventurers. Do you want to come with us in our base? Asked Tommy innocently. What? With all due respect, sir, we have enough refugees already. We can't take them back. What will Lieutenant General Hazama say? Said Shino in an angered tone. We already have a whole village under our wings. 2 more people will not change anything. Tommy smiled at her. Shino scowled and looked away. Fine. We don't want cause trouble. We just leave after we collected the ingredients from the dragon. Said the Black Flat Warrior. No, no. You do not cause us trouble. You just saved a whole bunch of people. Explained Tommy. Please come with us. I know with you two the place will be more exciting. Pleaded Rory as she looked at 2 of them with her adorable innocent, shining puppy eyes. Ordinary people could immediately melt from this look. Momon and Raiden saw Rory's adorable look, sweat dropped and stepped 1 step back. Do we accept it, Momon-san? Raiden looked to the tall warrior. Momon nodded and bowed his head. Please take care of us. Tommy smiled. Rory hugged the 2 of them. I know the 2 of you will come. The blessing of Enroy is protecting you. Message, this girl is scary Momonga. Message, indeed, Momon's sweat dropped internally. The little group started to head back to the team where the villagers cheered to the Dragon Slayer heroes who just saved their hides. Mari slowed her pace and started to walk beside Raiden. We need to make a quick examination after we return to the cars. It seemed that Dragon's breath hit you directly. Considering you wear that metal armor, I would be surprised if you would not have at least 3rd-degree burns under that armor. I wonder how you can still walk. That's not necessary, really. I'm fine. This armor enchanted to be resistant to fire. I insist. As the group field medic, my task is to verify my patient's well-being. I'm fine really. Raiden wanted to break free from Mari's grasp. Even though she could easily do it, she did not want to hurt the medic by accident. I insist. Raiden sighed and looked to Momon. The armored warrior chuckled. Just get it over with. Mori turned to him. You come too. Momin panicked for a moment, then he remembered what Est said. The illusion completely covers physical contact and senses. He sighed. So be it. The petite mage. Lily meanwhile followed them with silence. I assume it is some sort of transportation, right? Asked Momin as he pointed to the LAV. Yes, they're Levs. You two are not surprised seeing our vehicles? Asked Tommy, seeing the two adventurers' neutral attitude towards their cars. Every villager was dumbfounded seeing their cars at first. But the two adventurers were completely fine with them. The two of them looked at each other. We see weird things on a daily basis. This is not a new thing to us. Explained Radin. Momin nodded in agreement. Right, I understand. Tommy nodded. The group reached the LAVs as Tommy introduced them. They are Momin and Radin, adventurers. They will come back with us to our base. But first the medical investigation. Interjected Mori. The two adventurers sighed. From the car, Tuka gazed them suspiciously. They were able to defeat the fire dragon. She murmured. She still could not actually want to believe it. The two of them sit down on a stool. Could you two remove your helmet? Momin removed his helmet. His face seemingly was in the middle of his 30s. He had black iron hair. His face resembled the older Guts from the Berserk manga. Kurebayashi face reddened seeing Momin's handsome face and suddenly looked away. Radin poked a few times her mask left side, and with a hissing sound it slid down from her face. Then she takes off her hood, revealing her long white hair, heterochromatic eyes, long elf ears, and her face what belonged to a tan-skinned exotic beauty. Tommy's eyes widened. What is that armor? Are you an elf? And he looks like Guts from the Berserk. The two adventurers looked each other with a dumbfounded expression. Just don't listen to the first lieutenant. It has just lost his mind. Said Kurebayashi uneasily. Where did you get that armor? Asked Tommy from Radin in an excited manner. He was like a child who was just opening his gifts on Christmas Eve. Radin opened her mouth to answer, but Momin interrupted her. She found it. It is an artifact armor. Very rare where we came from. Explained Momin. Tommy nodded. I see. Message. Why do you have to wear such flashy armor? You'll bust us. Message. Yeah, right, Mr. Black Knight. Because your flashy armor will not bust us. She rolled her eyes inwardly under the examination. I found nothing. But you have to see the doctor in our base. Am I understood? The two of them nodded. Understood, ma'am. Replied Radin. Mori smiled and nodded. Tommy went back to his car and started to speak to Crota about his meeting the two RPG-like characters. Crota yelled. That is so cool. Every villager looked in the direction of their cars with a frightened expression. The members of the JSDF just sweat dropped. The group continued its way towards the base. There were two types of survivors from Kota village. The first were villagers who could seek out their family or friends nearby. Those were the lucky ones, as their family and friends guaranteed their safety while providing them with accommodation and job opportunities. The second type were villagers who had no family or friends and had to live the life of a refugee. These people, who made up most of the villagers, had no accommodation or job opportunities. Although they worried about how to live through the next day, they still prayed in gratitude that they had survived this disaster and hoped that Lady Luck would help them as they scattered throughout the land. Each of the surviving villagers grasped the hands of Tommy, his subordinates, and the two adventurers under their travel and thanked them profusely. The children ran around them and asked them numerous questions while their parents remained in the background watching the younglings. To the refugees, the JSDF and the two strangers who explained their job with the word adventurer were mysterious beings. They had helped them escape and even defeated the flame dragon, although they had no obligation to do so, and asked for nothing in return. Given that the soldiers of the JSDF could not speak the language, they did not seem like knights or priests of this country. If they were the army of a foreign nation, the villagers would have been slaughtered and pillaged. Of course, they were not bandits. The only two who could speak with the soldiers of the JSDF were the armored figures who appeared seemingly from the nowhere and helped the JSDF defeat the flame dragon. The villagers don't know them. Yet, they were glad for the two heroes to save them and defeated the flame dragon. Under their travel, the strangers explained to them they're adventurers from a foreign country and came to explore the region. The villagers accepted it because it was sensible to send adventurers to explore the area instead of a big force. But they did not know what to think about the JSDF. The most reasonable explanation for them was that the JSDF was a group of foreign mercenaries that was traveling to look for an employer. Recently, it seemed like the country and its nobles were recruiting troops. The only thing out of the ordinary was that if they were a mercenary group, they would not aid them without seeking profits. Thus, the villagers were scared about what sort of recompense a JSDF would demand in return for their power. They asked Raiden a moment for help if suddenly the men in green turned against them. The two of them promised nothing, just to try to negotiate with them if the case turns that way. The two of them spoke perfectly both language. Not only that, despite their praiseworthy accomplishment of defeating a flame dragon, the troops of the JSDF had gloomy looks on their faces and sunken shoulders that made people think that they were on the losing side. But when they saw Momo's inspiring stature, every face brightened. They even helped to bury the dead. A priest happened to be nearby and performed simple funeral rites. As they were parting ways, the JSDF even held their hands tightly and cried. Momo and Raiden, just about their head in respect, stood in silence in the background, gazing at the JSDF and the two adventurers who were waving their hands at them even after the villagers were out of their sight. The villagers of Kota village could only smile bitterly. The villagers were grateful for the sacrifice and the way they gave aid without asking for compensation, but thoughts of can they survive like this entered their minds. No matter what. Weren't they too kind? If this goes on, how are they going to earn a living? Now's not the time to worry about others. We're also in dire straits. What are we going to do from now on? Yeah. Humph. No matter how idiotic the lords or nobles are, they won't let go of these skilled people. No matter how you look at it, that was a flame dragon. They fought on equal ground with that monster and defeated it. Yup. But their hiring price won't be low for sure. No matter what, they would not be such idiots, right? Although they thought this, the villagers were genuinely concerned. The nobles had a common trait of unquenchable greed. Anyway, the villagers prayed to their god that this mercenary group, JSDF, and the two strange warriors with their unusual armor and values would be hired by a good-hearted employer. Incidentally, the luck of the villagers of Kota village had not yet run out. On their journey, they met a lot of people who asked for confirmation. In other words, was the flame dragon actually defeated? Of course, most of them recovered some token from the corpse as evidence a flame dragon is dead. But the people do not believe such thing that easily and just dismiss them with the quote, "This is some kind of very good forgery." Nothing else seemed change. In unknown location, it was really a flame dragon. I saw it with my own eyes. It looked at me with eyes that said, "Pitiful humans, huh?" Who, you ask? They were the people who wore mottled green clothes. They were humans, for sure. Not elves or dwarves. Maybe it's the eastern tribes' attire. Although they could not speak our language, they were smart, and they kept trying to learn our language. Yes. And there was another warrior. One of them wore magnificent black plate armor with a long crimson cloak and held two huge swords each of his hand. He looked like a hero from a tale. He accompanied with a short woman who wore an equally strange but no less exquisite armor. She was beautiful, so beautiful only her magic surpassed her beauty. She shot strange magical blades towards the flame dragon with her magic but simply penetrated its diamond-hard skin without resistance. Yes. I saw it. Those two was incredible. The woman seemingly used her magic to knock out the dragon with a single strike. Then the dragon tried to burn her life, but it was without avail. She held it back until the Black Knight decapitated the dragon with not more than a single strike. It was like heroes stepped out from legends and tales. Humph. You speak nonsense. No matter how strong you are, you can't kill a flame dragon with a single strike, not mentioning to hold it back, said indignantly the third. They were good people. They helped us to escape without asking anything in return. For free, I tell you. It's true. Unlike the bards, they did not have a wide vocabulary, and their description of the events was quite rough. But what they had seen with their own eyes needed no exaggeration. The listeners' imaginations were easily stirred when they heard the survivors' words, leaving a significant impression on them. Because the witnesses had seen it with their own eyes when they were asked, so what was it like? They could answer their audience's questions. When the scene was described where the dragon's arm got blasted off and its head has been cut off by the black-clad warrior massive blades, the listeners gulped and quietly said, how powerful. They parted ways with smiles on their faces and without asking for anything in return. Even the JSDF troopers themselves would have asked, who are you talking about? After all, a tale of heroes that would not even be found in Emima was currently spreading among the people. In the bars or even on the street, the refugees would be stopped and asked, are you from Kota village? And because the villagers saw different things from different points of view, what came out of each of their mouths were naturally different. With this, their words painted a surprisingly realistic scene. The mages of Arendelle even sent out mages to the location of the scene to investigate the magical energies what remained after the battle, and when they heard about the unknown source of magic in Fortress Gown, even more aspiring mages headed in its direction to investigate it and learn more about the magic what the invaders using. Just by telling their story, the people of Kota village did not have to worry about food or lodging before returning to the village. Based on these words, it seemed to fit the bill with the Kota villagers' descriptions. The coalition armies defeated Arns Hill and the second expedition army defeat in Duns Hill must be related to the magic weapons what the invaders used. Pena called the waitress to ask her a question. "Woman, have you seen the weapons have those people? What do they look like?" Melissa tilted her head as she told her what she had seen. Although being addressed as woman made her unhappy because of the presence of the young female knight who gave her tips, she decided to tell her the truth. In other words, those people used staffs that looked like steel. They made an exploding sound, as well as spitting fire. In my opinion, it is a magic weapon. As well as the two-appeared knight used magical arms and magic to defeat the dragon. Then, the staff they used to repel the slither worm, it's called the Divine Rod of Steel, right? What does it look like? And what kind of magic employed by those two knights? Try to the best of your abilities to describe it. Didn't I say that it was a flame dragon, not a slither worm? The waitress insisted. With a wicked smile, she glanced at the men around her. You're rhetorical. The Divine Rod is good stuff. Well, I can't blame you, seeing that you were born in an overprotective environment. But, why don't you ask the girls who have husbands? It's the same as a man's thing. Of course, it's so large that you can hug it. I don't think any man here has a thing that's as big or as black as it, and those two knights. One of them wore jet black armor, and I see his face under the helmet. He was handsome. No doubt about it. She blushed as she thought back to Moment's new handsome illusionary face. Then continued. He decapitated the dragon with a single strike. I say you. With a single strike. The other seemingly was a mage who used some kind of summoned swords to penetrate the dragon's scales. With a single stroke she knocked down the dragon from the sky, and her armor withstood even the flames of the beast. I see her face when she removed that strange helmet of hers. She was a dark elf. Pino's knights gulped hearing about the strange weapons and the two knights. The waitress laughed crudely as she went to the other table to take orders. Confused, Pino looked to the male knights for an explanation. As if on cue, all of them averted their faces from Pino's gaze. She finally set her sights on Hamilton. You have a fiancé, right? She must have thought that she was safe from the line of fire. The prim and proper knight, Hamilton and Oro, who was drinking soup, sprayed it out in surprise. Her messy short hair shook her head as she protested. I do, but I am still a maiden. How would I know about such a thing? The man's eyes landed on Hamilton. That kind of thing, eh? Pino's suspicious gaze pierced her. Hamilton could only blush furiously as she cowered down in her seat. Scene change. Arns Hill, JSDF base. Hazama's office. General, the reports from the recon platoons we dispatched have coming. Oh. The man who responded was Lieutenant General Hazama. He had been a student of philosophy at Tokyo University, a graduate at school which only accepted the best of the best. However, the truly inspiring part of his life story was how he enlisted as a private with the JSDF and climbed the ranks until he became the mighty lieutenant general he was now. One could say that, although he could have taken the fast track, he chose to go a long way instead. His catchphrase was no pain, no gain. Hazama took off his glasses and looked at the pile of documents on his desk to 1LT Yanagita. 1LT Yanagita had graduated from the National Defense Academy of Japan, NDA, with flying colors, and under normal circumstances, he would have been considered an elite thinker. However, in front of Hazama, he never seemed to be able to raise his head. The reason for that was apparently because he failed to get into Tokyo University. People compare themselves to others by many metrics: academic records, resumes, performance records, and, for members of the JSDF, their ability as warriors. They would always look for fields in which they could surpass others. Then what would happen if an individual who was excellent in all areas appeared before them? Most people would unconditionally accept the inferiority and think, that guy's amazing, but Yanagita was far too proud for that. Perhaps he had an unfortunate encounter as a child, or his parents had raised him that way, but in the face of a superior individual, he did not feel respect, but rather resentment from the bottom of his heart. What's the matter? Did you realize something? Hazama raised his crew-cut head and leaned back against his chair. The cheap office furniture creaked under his weight. He didn't think too much about Yanagita's resentment, though he did think, I need to keep an eye on this fellow. Several reconnaissance reports have arrived, but I didn't believe that they were that important because they're just raw data. That's true, make sure they do a good job. However, we got a strange report from our early flight survey. What strange report? Asked Lieutenant General Hazama as he leaned forward. The two pilots reported they were chased off by black armored angels when they want to investigate newly built fortress 10 miles away from our location. According to their reports, the fortress, built around the same type structure what appeared in Japan, and surrounded by some sort of force field. What? You say, angels? I assume they managed to escape? Asked Hazama in a surprised tone. Yes, however. They just barely managed to escape. According to them, those angels almost overtook them and used energy-based weapons. The jets were full of holes when they returned. Hazama listened his subordinate uneasily. The pilots only managed to escape due they changed into the maximum throttle to reach Mach 2. Only after that, they managed to leave the area. After the pilots were approximately 2 miles away from the fortress, only then those creatures stopped chasing them. If you ask me, General, those creatures only wanted to scare our pilots off. They protected the area from invaders. Hazama nodded while he thought what he heard. Did they manage to make any photos? Asked Hazama. Yanagita nodded. Yes. But only from the angels. Strangely, when they tried to make infra cameras from the inside of the fortress, all of the captured photos became corrupted. Hazama thought for a moment. Maybe, they are using a jamming equipment of some kind? Yanagita replied. Most likely. If the other forces are like us, they are just protecting their own home. Hazama nodded. You are right. Until further notice, that area is a restricted flying zone. No one flies in a route without permission. Dismissed. He commanded his subordinate. Yanagita concluded his briefing by placing a sheet of photocopied A4 paper on Hazama's desk. He excelled in this field of work and rarely made mistakes. Then, he saluted and left. Hazama leaned back in his cheap chair and started to massage his nose temple with an exhausted motion. Just what we needed. A civilization who can use energy-based weapons. We may have to send envoys to them and discuss the situation before they consider attacking us. Hazama did not feel that a simple reconnaissance would give him a full picture of the situation. However, he was looking forward to understanding the inclinations of the locals. But after he heard about those strange angels who used energy-based weapons and they almost hunted down the F-2 jets, he was a little frightened. Their relationship with the locals, the safety of the JSDF units, and the opinions of the special region with respect to Japan and governmental influence were all closely interlinked. Ignoring the locals' feelings would breed contempt, or worse, active insurgency that would outweigh any benefits of such callousness. As such, it was critical to understanding what the locals meant by righteousness, evil and so on. For instance, Islamic cultures hated dogs and preferred men to have beards. The only common point between the teams was that, despite the difficulty, they all made the first contact. The locals, which superficially resemble human beings, primarily make their living through agriculture, with forestry being a close second. Their population is distributed into settlements and is generally low. The 6th Recon Platoon has only found mercantile installations in villages with populations of over 500 people. They mainly sell clothes, tools, farming equipment, oil lamps and other miscellaneous living essentials. This is the stock list in the price catalog. Several photos are also enclosed. Hazama went through the materials as if he were reading a table of figures. However, this information was critical for understanding the economic situation of the special region, so he had to send it back through the gate for study by government experts. Then he started to read the reports of the two pilots and inspecting the photos what they take from the creatures. The black armored creatures reminded him the angels from his son's video game. The angels almost looked exactly like them except their armors were black, and one of their wings were black as well. The halo above their heads what was outlined with brimming white light. He sighed. I hope our little airspace violation does not cause war. I don't really want to figure out how strong these creatures and what kind of surprise hell does the other civilization scene change. Arns Hill, JSDF base entrance. There were 3 ways of evacuating the refugees. 2 had already been touched on. The method Tommy and the others picked was the third. They chose this approach of evacuation because there were only about 20 to 30 people they had to worry about. Following an armed group of unknown affiliation was just as risky as jumping into a ravine for the people of this world. They might as well have been stripped naked and sold into slavery. However, they had no choice. They were children who had lost their parents when the flame dragon attacked elderly people who had lost their children, and some were even wounded. Under normal circumstances, the outcome for them would be a long and slow death anyway. Of course, some of them were different. For instance, there was a magician Kato and his pupil, who were very interested in the JSDF, as well as the priestess of Enroy and the two adventurers. However, many of the refugees were asked questions that could not be answered, such as whether you want to go after this. We'll take you to wherever you want to go. Itami decided to ask the village chief about what to do with the remaining 20 to 30 people. The reply he got was leave it to God. Itami tilted his head and asked again. After Momon and Raiden had helped him with the translation, the replies he got were along the lines of where nobody needs to take care of them, anywhere, wherever you want. He sighed deeply. The village chief got onto the wagon his family was riding, and spoke to Itami. I fully understand that you're noble and compassionate folk and that we must seem cruel and heartless in your eyes. However, it's already very hard for us just to take care of ourselves. Forgive our selfishness in this matter. The village chief left without looking back. Itami and the others had been struck dumb by the sheer callousness of that statement.